Well, I am honored to finally connect with Kris Huete. She is the mom of two adult kids, a son about to turn 18, a daughter who will be 24, two fur babies. She has a home-based business as an independent consultant with Arbonne International. She's in New Orleans, so there is a 5-hour time difference. And we both, I think I share the same passion about health and wellness, and you love helping people become the best version of themselves. My mission regarding parents, helping parents become the best version of themselves. And because I've known you since your soon-to-be 24-year-old was in middle school, I've seen, both of your kids growing up so quickly, and I'd love to hear your take on how do you transition from being the mom of adolescents and then all of a sudden they're adults. You have your mom hat, and then you were talking about how can you describe that transition?
Well, I think I would describe it kind of on a sliding sort of scale, and I'm using my finger because my sliding is really horizontal, not vertical. Because my daughter, as you said, is almost 24, and she's been out on her own and has her own apartment, has a full-time job, and she's car insurance, the whole kit and caboodle. And so I've been in a position where she calls me and says, gosh, Mom, you're not going to believe this. The air conditioner broke in our apartment, and it's a Friday, and they can't get the part till Tuesday. And then the next thing out of her mouth was, can I come over? So then, she's calling me to tell me about, her adult problem with the air conditioner, but I need to come home because I don't want to stay in my apartment. We live in New Orleans. It's 95 degrees, hot. And so, right then and there, I went from mom, hi, I'm your friend. I'm complaining about my adult situation. And I slid right back to being mom. Can I come over there and be in comfort in the air conditioning? So I think that it's, sometimes when I really think about it in my head, I still kind of say, I can't believe that my firstborn child is almost 24. She's graduated from college, and it's a very bittersweet feeling because, I certainly enjoyed my children when they were babies, and I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. So I was there for everything. I don't necessarily want to go back to those days, but I miss those days. So I guess it's kind of nice that I get to be both the mom and the friend at this stage in my children's lives, because I certainly wouldn't want it to be where my children were dying to get out of the house because they can't stand me.
True.
But you know what I mean? So we have a great relationship. My daughter and I have, we're very close, and it's a very proud time in our lives because we can, my husband and I, we can look back and say, because as parents, we constantly go, am I doing this right? Am I,
Exactly.
Gosh, I just don't have there's no instant gratification. There's no check in the box, So here we have this child who's becoming a productive member of society. And that is finally the validation that we can say, well, Lord knows we had doubts the whole time. And now
Exactly.
We're like, and we got one more to start college this fall. So, the good Lord is blessed us with two wonderful children. And, I will say that parenting is the hardest thing I've ever done. But it is worth every second. I can't imagine, my life without them. They're both a blessing. And, but I do enjoy, I always wanted that kind of relationship, especially with my daughter. Very, I can think back to when she was a toddler, and she would ask, not a toddler, well, she was 5 years old when I found out I was pregnant with my son. And so when my baby bump's showing, she's asking me, how, Mom, does the baby come out of your belly button? And
yes, I remember those
so
days.
I had that's okay. Am I going to give her, what am I going to say here? And I finally decided she's asking me a yes or no question. So I'm going to give her the answer, which is no.
Smart.
But that was it. She didn't ask me, later on she asked, but she
Right.
just wanted to know that one. So I just decided right then and there that I needed to be truthful. I wasn't going to make up the stork is going to bring the baby, or, I'm going to go to the store and buy the baby. I just wanted, when it was age appropriate, she got the information that she needed. And I think that has given her the ability to, when she's learning about something, and she will take on the information and process it at the rate that she needs to process it, to figure out anything in life when she's navigating adulthood now.
I love that. Yeah, like age appropriate, right? Sharing the knowledge. What do you think creates, or how do parents create a bond where like your daughter is comfortable sharing? Because I know some of my friends are amazed that, oh my gosh, your daughter pretty much tells you a lot of stuff that most daughters wouldn't. What do you think created or set up that stage where Kate feels comfortable, coming to you?
Well, I think that was it from the beginning. I used to say, when I would get angry with my kids for, something they did wrong, I'd always make sure that it's not you that I dislike. It's not you that I'm judging. I just don't like, the particular behavior. You, the person, there's nothing wrong with you. So I always kind of developed that non-judgmental, I'm not judging you as a person. You didn't fail, or you're not bad. It's just what you did maybe was not the best thing. So with just getting that message across that, okay, you can come to me and I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to, depending on what it is, I might be a little disappointed or mad or whatever, but I never, and if it was something that made me mad or potentially, I would always sort of, not lash out like right away. I would just take the information and plus I could always tell my kids were terrible liars anyway. But it just with my kids, you can come to me. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not just setting up a safe environment where they felt like they could come to me and say these things are happening, or this happened, or this is what I did, without feeling like, oh, mom is just going to rip my head off and she's going to hate me. So I just really set up so it was a very as comfortable as they could possibly be, and just deal with it as level-headed as I could be. Because if my kids were scared to come to me because they were worried there was going to be some angry reaction, then they'd be scared. So I just tried to give it a very, I guess I would say not necessarily a positive, but a neutral atmosphere to come to me with whatever. And
so, I think when kids feel safe and they're not going to be, they're not scared of the judgment, because that's what I think hurts kids. And sometimes you might not even, does this happen? You might not even intend to have that comment be judgmental, but because they're so sensitive, they're like,
absolutely.
And that's happened recently, and you think, wait a minute, I didn't say that, but they leave it that way. And then the whole conversation becomes kind of like taking back, or what I really meant was, and then you feel sometimes, I mean, how do you solve that, But at least, how would you solve that? I guess it's when miscommunication happens. Does that happen?
Oh, absolutely, it does. And this might be stereotypical, but my son, trying to get him to give me information, it's almost sometimes like pulling teeth.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
And it's just like, so sometimes I have to ask the question multiple times. Sometimes I just, I'll I ask him tomorrow, I'll blow it off and say, I'll ask tomorrow or whatever. And he's, and even if you try to get him to have a conversation, it'll be, and it's the same thing when I text him, it'll be a yes or a no. And I'll be like, okay, well, there's got to be more to
Yeah,
this. You're not
exactly.
telling me. So please. So it's kind of funny because it's a lot of work to get things out of him, but it's not so much work to get things out of Kate. But PJ has definitely learned, because that was one of the things he struggled with, is just dealing with emotions and having empathy and, you know, even expressing himself, because he always felt, because he's not very he can't operate very well in the abstract. It's very black and white. So it would be, sometimes he'd be willing to talk to me about something, but he didn't quite know how to express it. And it would have to, he would have to, you know, what I learned to do with him is give him prompts, you know, like you know, well, I
Like
remember
maybe open-ended questions where it's not just yes or
open-ended
no.
questions, and maybe prompt him to think a little bit more about it, because like I said, the abstract is not his natural go-to. And so just getting him to think, you know, about maybe different points of view has helped him express, and a lot of times he would be really hard on himself because he felt like he was just too overly sensitive. And he never really thought that was a great attribute for himself as a personality trait. And I said, well, you know, you're sensitive and tenderhearted, but that's a good thing.
Right.
You know, so because of that, he's been able to develop, because it hasn't come naturally, develop his empathy. And I have seen a huge difference. So yeah, I mean, he, you know, I got him, you know, when we didn't really know what we were dealing with our son, because he was diagnosed 2 years ago with high functioning Asperger's. So once we kind of got that, we were like, oh, okay. So some of these things begin to make sense. And so, yeah, both my kids, for different reasons, just giving them a neutral platform to come to me or their dad. It's usually just me,
right,
to talk about stuff. And you know, my daughter tells me everything, and some of the things it's just between me and her. I don't share them with her father. It's just between us. So that's the other thing. She has to be able to trust that, you know, that these things are
kept
going
in
the vault.
Yeah. And I think that's what probably helps build that bond, because they know, number one, it's safe. It's a safe environment, that you keep their confidence, that you're not going to judge them. I'm just curious, did you have the same type of upbringing? I've had two different types of parents. One who they didn't want to follow the same parenting style, and then others where they wanted to, you know, replicate how they were brought up.
I came from I've done the absolute opposite.
I've heard recently,
because my parents divorced when I was very, very young, and I came up in an environment that was completely not safe, because we got passed around like a couple of hot potatoes between my parents. You know, you take care of them for a while. No, now it's your turn to take care of them for a while. So we bounced back and forth quite a bit.
How many siblings?
So I have I have one older brother.
Okay, so two children as well.
Yeah. And at one point we were homeless. And, you know, so yeah, I mean, literally at times I didn't know where my next meal was coming from, and just being raised thinking that all of that was, you know, I was nothing but a financial burden on my parents. So definitely the opposite of yeah. So that's, as an adult, when I look back, I you know, it's like, well, there is one thing I'm going to do for my future children, is as I was going to build from a firm foundation. My husband and I have been married for 31 years now. So that's amazing. And then I wanted to build my family I wanted my family to be close. And because my husband was in the Navy for 30 years. And at times he was gone for long stretches of time. That was another reason I decided to be the primary caregiver, the stay-at-home full-time mom, because my kids would always know, well, dad is on the ship. That's what he does. Oh, my battery. Hang on.
Okay, sure.
I got to go find some battery. I mean, my
your charger.
My plug.
That is a challenge, though. I mean, and that's why I just love how a lot of parents decide not to follow the way that they were raised, because sometimes, don't you think, it's like an automatic thing because you don't know any different, so you repeat, how you were raised.
Absolutely. And I remember even as a kid, I would say to myself, oh, this is going to be different, for my kids. I'm going to plug this in. So my head is going to go off the screen. Hang on.
Okay.
So where were we? Sorry about that.
You were mentioning about how you decided when you were younger that when you have a family, right, you're going to do a whole different parenting style, create probably security, right, safety, and just, it sounds like an unconditional environment where they knew that they would always be loved no matter what. And I think a lot of its parents mean to do that, and I've been guilty, like sometimes you'll say something just out of the moment when, we have those moments where we're tired or we're not ready to hear some news, and it's not news that would actually make us feel like we did a good job, and kind of not personalize it. So how did you do it? Because I'm still handling that as a mother of an adult child, well, 2 adult children. When you hear news that you didn't expect and you have to take a deep breath. I mean, how do you remain calm? I'd love to hear parents' perspective.
I don't think calm, I guess, I always tell my children this, that not to react out of anger, because that's usually when you will say something or do something that you don't really mean and that you will regret it. And sometimes you can try to take it back, but if it's something that's very hurtful, it may just leave might cut too deep. So if it's something that's really, just like you said, not ready to hear this news, it might be something that I would have to say, look, I need to think about this and get back to you, because I really don't, again, I think that's one of the things I do to maintain that non-judgmental environment. And, if I have to say, I have to think about this, or even say, I can't talk about it right now, there's nothing wrong with that.
Wow. I love that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're just asking for some time to process something. And if it's a biggie, I just think time is what you really need. And I don't want to react out of anger, because I really think that is where I'm going to set myself up to say something that I really don't mean. And, asking for some time to process it there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I'm sure that would decrease a lot of, ill feelings, resentment, a lot of things that, like you said, once they're said, you can't take it back. But that is something I don't think parents really consciously, make an effort to do that, because we feel, people are busy, and you feel like you just have to answer because you just, especially if they're like, well, and, they want to talk about it. But I love how you give yourself permission to just say, I need time.
I need time. And, and I honestly, both my kids, neither one of them said, oh, gee, Mom, they were just, they get it. I mean, they realize that this is something big, and, and one of the things I say to my son a lot, and he kind of makes fun of me for saying it sometimes, about, I can't make you any promises, or I can't make you any guarantees, because I my father was the world's worst with making promises, and he broke all of them. And that really, really that left a mark, I got to say. I, you know, and with PJ, like I said, because the abstract is not his strong point, he really does want to know yes or no, black or white. And that's why he laughs. He goes, "I know what you're going to say, Mom. You're going to say I can't." And I said, "Well, that's true, PJ," because he's also kind of like, "Well, you said," he's always.
Chelsea does that, and so I say, "Wait a minute. If you remember, I said I'm not sure, or we shall see," which means it doesn't mean a no, but it doesn't mean a yes. But yeah, if you have children who are really black and white, or they want to know, and if you just happen to say, "Yeah, probably," they're not going to listen to the probably. They're going to listen to, "You promised." Wait a minute. I what?
Hear that? Yes. Yeah. That's been, like I said, that was one thing that as a kid, having my father break promises all the time, that left a mark. And so I don't even take that lightly, like, "Oh, I promise I'll buy you a milkshake on the way home." I mean, that's a tiny little thing, right? But if PJ says, "Mom, can I get a milkshake on the way home?" I'll say, "I can't make you any even something like that." I'll say, "I can't make you any promise." That's because of what I went through as a kid, and that's so minor, but some of the promises was, like I said, my parents divorced when I was little, and my father would promise, "Oh, I'm going to come and pick you up, and you're going to spend the weekend with me," and then he would be a no-show, and that happened over and over and over. So that just one of those things that stuck with me and meant a lot. So, and I also think parenting is one of those things where, yes, we can read the books, and yes, we can ask family members or whatever, but it also you have to give yourself permission. I think it's important to figure it out, on your own, if you know what I mean. Like, I think people don't give themselves enough credit sometimes, or they fall into that trap of looking around and see other people, how they parent, and think that's what they have to do.
Exactly.
I was never.
Yeah. And then you feel like you're not doing it the right way because you're not doing it maybe like the way the majority, is doing it. And that's what I went through.
Every single summer when parents is, running around going, "How many camps do you have your kids signed up for?" And I would be like, "None." I always wanted our summers to be not structured.
Right.
But again, I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have to keep my work schedule. So I had that flexibility, but I didn't want to overstructure my kids ever.
Right.
And luckily my kids were not, they get overwhelmed really easily. So they didn't need that. They didn't need constant stimulation. In fact, they needed a break from the stimulation. So I think you have to listen to your kids, or, pay attention to your kids' personality.
Definitely.
And
know not your just kid. Go with, "Oh, well, everyone is going to, summer fun. Everyone's going to, even like with these trips, right? Chelsea would be like, "Well, so-and-so is in New York right now. So-and-so isn't in London now." It's like, well, one day, if you want to, go to New York, go to London, go to wherever, not at, not every summer. I mean, some people do that, but I think it teaches our kids not to go with the norm too. I bet both Kate, right, and PJ just realize, you know what, just because they do it doesn't mean that we have to.
Well, you know what? That's so true. I mean, I think my kids are kind of like the typical kids, I mean, they do, one of my son's friends got a new car, and he's like, "Mom, sure would be nice if I got a new car." I'm like, "Okay. Yeah, I would like to have a new car too." I mean, we've always been, we give our children based on necessity. He's going to college in the fall, so he does need a car, but we're not going to the car lot and buying him a brand new car. We'll get him, within reason. We don't live outside our means, and the kids, they get what they need. It may not be, the BMW that their friend is driving around, but that's what it is. And I think that's one of the things that I learned, because I didn't have, when I did have, it was something I learned to appreciate. And
Well,
that's what I
that's what it is too. Because if you are get the BMW at 16, then you're going to need the multi-million-dollar house at 30, and then you're going to need, and you're never going to feel your worth will be defined by material
Mhm.
possessions or, you know, going on certain trips or right. And then when you don't have it, suppose someone loses your job or suppose your finances change, then it's almost like your worth lessens.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's being a parent is, um, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. I'm so grateful that I have these two healthy, happy, well-adjusted children. The military gave us a lot of opportunities to live in places, and I think that gave my children a lot of practical experience. So they learn to make friends, they learn to adapt, they learn to
Hmm.
adjust. Change is hard for anybody. So they learned that they had to make change, new city, new house, new school, new friends, new everything. So that's a life lesson. And I think my kids definitely got a little extra with that, with all the moving, and we just took advantage of, I mean, we loved our days in Hawaii.
Hmm.
And if it hadn't been for the Navy, we wouldn't have been in Hawaii. There were so many
Right.
things that we see and do because of that. And I think that's really given my kids a very, uh, you know, balanced education, because they also know that the way they live is not necessarily the way everybody else lives, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Right. So a closing question. Now, it's interesting when you said that because you lived all over and they were able to adapt and, change and just go through all of this. Do you think that has affected how they, this whole pandemic thing has been so traumatizing, but I just thought because they've learned to adapt, do you think that affected the way that they reacted to this whole stay-at-home order and the rising cases of
Well,
COVID
I
and
think,
just
yeah, I think so, because we are all in this atmosphere of not feeling out of control, feeling like because there are certain things we have no control over, and having to deal with, oh, okay, well, things that I used to take for granted, like getting in the car and going to the grocery store, is now a process.
hmm.
And so adapting to that, and even the changing information, at the beginning we didn't know as much as we do now. And so yes, I really think that has given them a certain level of experience with regard to just dealing with a situation, because I mean, they didn't ask to move around and change schools and change where they lived. That's what their dad did, and it
Hmm.
wasn't something
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
could control or stop or not do. So they learn to kind of roll with that. With Kate, it's been very nice because she gets to work from home. However, she's working from home and she's bored, she's getting a little cabin fever,
Right.
but she's hanging tough. She's hanging in there. With PJ, he's content to be at home.
Yes.
He's a homebody. So having said all that, I think in 2 weeks he's going to have a little bit more of in your face of dealing with it, because he's going to be on a college campus. We'll just have to kind of go with the flow and see how
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
works, and adjust accordingly. That's what basically they had to do. They had to adjust accordingly when they were growing up and living all over the place, and not necessarily having any family even to lean on locally. So that's what we do now, though. I mean, we've got family in the area. So
Wow. Well, if anyone wants to contact you regarding Arbonne, how do they reach you? Do you have, I think you have
I
Facebook or?
I have a couple things. It's Facebook, and then my website is actually Kris.Huete. No, I'm sorry, KrisHuete.Arbonne.com. So it's KrisHuete dot Arbonne, which is spelled Arbonne, So Kris Huete is all together, and then .arbonne.com. Now, my Facebook, I don't know. I believe it's just Kris Huete.
I'll look it up and then I can put that down.
Yeah, I think it's Kris Huete Arbonne. That's my business page.
Okay,
And then the Instagram. Well, my Instagram is both personal and business, but I do have a business page, Facebook. But KrisHuete.arbonne.com
is the best way.
That's the website, and that's there's a little bit of my profile is on there if people want to read about me, which is some of the things that when you introduced me, it's in there. And if people would like to email me with questions, my email is Huete.Kris. So it's HUETE.KRIS@gmail.com if they want to email me. And my cell phone number is 361-633-9642. And I've had that cell phone number for a long time. It's a 361 is when we were stationed in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Wow.
Almost 20 years.
Wow. Yeah. It's probably the number that you gave me then when you were in Hawaii.
It is. It exactly is. I never had an 808.
Well, thank you, Kris. I mean, I know that this is really late for you, right?
No
It's about, 9:17. So thank you so much for staying up and doing this for me as a favor. I love your parenting tips, and I'm going to practice that. Let me think about it. And I think if more of us did that instead of, I need to answer this right now. And that's when words are said that sometimes should not be said. So I love that. I'm going to write a little thing.
It's been a pleasure and an honor being, talking with you. And I just want to say again, I totally love what you're doing. I believe this is, I'm so excited for you and this project that you've launched in your book. I'm glad that you and I have reconnected with all of this. And it's just, I'm so proud of you for just taking the ball and running with this. I think it's something that's going to be so helpful for people, and I'm gonna keep watching you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, please do, and I will post this in the next week or so.
Okay,
So thank
sounds
you very
good.
much, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.